Well, hi, I'm Scott King, and this is Kraus. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about conversational AI. If you've spent any time online lately in the past month or so, you've seen Chat GPT, you've seen uses for it, you've seen people playing around with it. Any opening remarks, Chris? Have you played with it? I've played with
Well,
it.
I get a lot of timeouts. I'm like,
Yeah.
if I was actually using it to write my term papers, I'd be hosed because 2/3 of the time I'm like, there's no more sessions. So I've played with it, but probably not as much as you have.
Yeah, I have seen people say that there are timeouts and they can't get access. Normally, when I'm using it, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning here. And
Yeah,
I've never had an issue with it.
yeah, not at 10 in the morning.
Yeah, but I did ask it. Um, where is conversational AI going? So I typed in, where is conversational AI going, and I'm just going to read what it told me. So it says. Conversational AI is progressing rapidly and is being used in a variety of applications. It's being used to automate customer service, provide personal assistance, and automate sales processes. In the future, we can expect to see conversational AI used in more sophisticated applications, such as providing medical advice, helping with legal issues, and providing a more natural and intuitive user interface. So does that sound accurate? I mean, it told me that. I don't know if that's right.
I, I think that we're litigious and there's a lot of, I can't imagine medical advice other than because people, any ailment they have, they're going to Google, right? And with legal issues, what are you going to tell Judge Judy? Chat GPT told me this should be my defense. And she's like, no, because that was not real. That wasn't lawyer's advice. So I think the trick is it's learning content from the internet all over the firewall, across the firewall, anywhere. And probably the most popular content wins. You don't know if it's the right answer. So I don't think I would actually diagnose a mole based on color by talking to ChatGPT. And with legal advice, I'd be a little concerned: is this conjecture, hearsay? Is this actually something that a court case found? And so, but I think it's a really cool technology. I mean, they're liking the interaction with the conversation and the fact it gives you like a written context back versus search links and that. It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, you did say that it learns from the internet, right? I mean, it's a sophisticated language learning model, and the
Yep.
training data is out there on the internet, and it tells you it goes up until like late 2021 or something. Because I always ask it like who won the football game last week, and it gave me one like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, just playing with it, but if you really wanted an answer like that, like, hey, what happened 5 minutes ago? What happened last month? Kind of like a status report. Like, could this be used inside the firewall? So if I'm an enterprise person, right? Finance, sales, customer support, like, using something like that inside the firewall to help me help somebody else, that seems valuable. Is that ever going to work?
I think that the concept of conversational AI should solve that. I'm not sure if Chat GPT will exactly solve that because it does have to retrain the algorithms, and that's something that doesn't happen in real time. But should we be able to interact with software via conversation and actually get an answer back like we do with conversation, Chat GPT? We should. It's like that's where people are going. And the difference is, you could actually take, say, Chat GPT and train on your intranet in your company. So all your HR policies, all your how-to manuals and that. So you would have curated or gave it specific information to understand. So it would give you an answer in the context of your business itself.
Yeah.
And I think that over time, computers will get faster. The ability to retrain and learn will get faster. And I think that's like static lookups. But I think the other side of conversational AI is like, can we interact with the system? Like, could I actually ask the ERP or the warehouse management system something and get a response back and actually do a real-time lookup into a system? And I think that's really exciting for the enterprise.
Yeah, because that's what an agent would do anyway. I recently got a new smartphone from T-Mobile, and they had a sale, and so I said, okay, I'll get one. And before they gave me the phone, of course they have to see what they had in the store available because I was just in the store, and they said, okay, you can have this or this one, but they had to go look it up. Like I could have looked up,
Yeah.
like, hey, what kind of phone could I have right now? That would be helpful. They had to look up in a inventory management system. Um, so, I mean, if we're looking at conversational AI and we're looking at who our buyers listen to, the analysts. So I did take a look at what Forrester and Gartner say about AI and about Chat GPT, things like that. Um, one interesting point that they made was about Turing bots. So if you're familiar with Alan Turing and the Turing bots, they said that about 10% of like worldwide code and then software testing code, automated testing, is going to be written by AI. So I thought that was a pretty accurate number. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, I think so. And we've already seen progressions to that in different software because when you ask for data and get data, if you're in unit tests at a very low level, you have examples of that data. So it's not like the person's doing anything creative. It's a very rote recipe of how to do that. So that's totally going to happen.
Yeah. And then they said about 10% of the Fortune 500 enterprise will generate content with AI tools. I mean, I think that's a given. I think that's like
Yes.
the primary use case, right? So my LinkedIn feed is mostly marketing people, and they're talking about this all over the place. I mean, I've written with AI tools that they work well. You do have to clean it up, but get you a good jump start.
Yeah.
And then another one we talked about the trust and verify earlier about the right answers. So Forrester says 25% of the tech execs will report on AI governance. So this is
Yes.
similar to if you have to report on cybersecurity risk and governance. The AI, whether or not you can trust the model,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be a board level topic, and I think that's accurate because you can't lead all your workers in the wrong direction,
Oh,
right?
I think so. And if you think about when you give answers to AI, probably the more answers or consistency in an answer, the higher it's going to rank as a response.
Yeah.
But then, you could actually have the opposite happen. And I've talked to customers about this when they said we get emails into a call center and we categorize them. But even when a human does it, there are errors in the categorization. So if we're giving that to models to learn, there's going to be some level of inaccuracy that they have to determine and figure out how to scrub and fix. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a really big uh, thing for us to see addressed at the corporate level.
Yeah, and I would rather, with the email responses, I'd rather software answer that anyway. A friend of mine, he's a CIO at some financial services firm, and they played with chatbots,
Mm-hmm.
and it deflects to the person so soon, the chatbot, because it doesn't know any, like, it never knows the answer to your specific question, right?
Yeah.
And he said that we had to do away with it because the agents, like, their English was so bad that they couldn't type an accurate answer back. And I
Right.
was thinking, man, you got to have software do that.
Yeah.
So he's going to play with it again a little bit later. But that's the biggest, that I think that's the biggest prediction that Forrester also had, was that the virtual assistants is, that is going to be the biggest use case, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, Helping someone do their job, because if we have to trust and verify the answer, and the software can help us get to at least a possibility quicker, that's the biggest use case. And you said that, like, in the contact center, Gartner says the same thing. Gartner says like 10% of calls are going to be answered by virtual assistants. But the email thing that you described, Chris, is I think that's a big use case.
Yeah. And if you think about even in science fiction, when you talk to the computer, whether it's HAL, which was but a very computer voice, or on Star Trek or other things, they're not worried about the computer having emotion and being personified. And there's a lot of companies out there, and their goal is to make their chatbots personified, so you don't know it's not a person. And I think that I'd be more worried about, can I actually get an actionable answer and help someone out, than having empathy for their question. It's like I'm more interested in, could I actually provide better service versus providing empathy. I'm so sorry I couldn't help you with that answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think getting away from the avatar and the trying to make the chatbot or, conversational AI human like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a given because it's not a person. Although I am interacting with one of our vendors, like in a ticketing system, and I don't know what they have. The responsiveness is so incredible that, like, and I've never talked to them on the phone. Like, I'm really curious if it's a person because, or software. I mean, it's incredible. Like the responsiveness and, I'm thinking he must stay up all night or something. But it's definitely, I'm having my own touring bot experience with a vendor. So moving on, Chris, what if we look at the conversations and how they've evolved, right? If I'm looking for an answer, I ask one question, I get an answer back. But what happens if I don't get exactly what I'm looking for? Like how is this really? It's conversational AI, and I say that in um, because that's what we're discussing. But if it's like, how is it different than just finding answers and then having a conversation?
So I think there's two things that we have to look at. One is remembering that we're having a conversation in the context. Because a big challenge is when you work with systems, you say, like, you ask a question, like, what's the balance of my savings account? And then you would say, when I give it a second instruction or conversation, you would have context and remember things. So you'd say, okay, transfer $10,000 to my savings account or my money market or another account. But in most systems these days, you have to give both sides of the conversation. And really, you could say, we should be able to say, what's the balance of my savings account? That's great. Transfer $10,000 to my checking account. And the computer should reiterate back, I will transfer 10,000 from your savings to your checking. And you not have to reiterate everything. They shouldn't be just without context. We have to remember the context. And that going back and forth on a specific topic is not really personification, it's just making it usable, right? And when you look at chatbots, if you ask a question, in most cases, they don't remember the context of what your last question was to provide the next one. Even if it's like lookups, like, I want to take a vacation to Hawaii. How many people do this each year? And then you say, what's the weather like? Well, you would not want to say Hawaii again. You would expect it remembers the context. Oh, we're talking about Hawaii. What's the weather like? And you can ask, different questions, all in the context of one stream of thought. So I think remembering the context of a conversation and then building on it is something that really good conversational AI will do, and that will make it more useful. And it doesn't matter if it's, say, lookups on the internet or they're actually inside the firewall. So, like at the enterprise level, you say, what's the outstanding balance for customer Acme Corp, and then you want to say, like, how many orders are outstanding. You don't want to see Acme Corp again because you're talking about Acme Corp, right?
Yeah.
So that whole concept of, can it remember the context of a conversation and then build on it? That's where I think that existing FAQ lookups and kind of Googling type searching doesn't work well. And it's where it's going. It actually gives you better customer service.
Yeah, because the context builds the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
In your Hawaii example, yeah, if you ask it the weather and it tells you the weather in Dallas versus what you're
Not
talking about.
helpful. Hot.
I mean that makes sense, right? It probably like
Yeah.
knows your IP address and it says, "Hey, the weather is this," right? Um, but I mean that is why I think calling it a virtual assistant is maybe accurate and not an offshore virtual assistant, but an actual AI one, because like that's why people when they call customer service, they just hit 000, or agent. Like every time I
Yeah,
call the airline, agent, right? Because um, like why am I the only one with this question? It seems
yeah,
it seems counterintuitive that I would be the only one, and I can't navigate through the tree. But the context builds the story, right? Because you understand where you want to go. You're just trying to figure out how to get there. And I think maybe the with the existing chatbots, like they just want to deflect that call and get this person, um, try to solve their issue as soon as possible so they don't talk to an agent, because talking to an agent, costs $8 to solve your issue, whereas if a software does it, it's 10 cents, right? It's a no-brainer,
yeah, yeah.
to try to get rid of those calls. But how do we, like, if you need this functionality inside of an enterprise to build the contextual conversation, what do some of these organizations need to do, like maybe and I'm thinking of big functions, sales functions, cyber functions. They use a lot of tools,
Right.
and have a lot of threat data, so they could definitely use something like this. But what are some examples that you've talked to customers about?
Well, definitely around customer service. And like the email example you said, they want an email to be a continual conversation. If you ask a question about an invoice and then be able to, the computer software replies back, and then the person has a second question, so it remembers the context and goes to the next one and the next one. That's really big. And then actually having like a chatbot on a website that actually has the context to be able to answer a question and go and keep it running. So that does mean that someone inside the enterprise is thinking about what are the common questions people have, what are the type of things we need to respond to. And it won't be pure magic. There'll be some human intervention to orchestrate and figure out how to respond back. But that's actually really, really big. And I think another one that is a simple use case is if you think about so many times we give our customers a form and it says like fill out sections A and B, and then in C it says did you answer um, to true or false to this question. If true, answer these questions as false. Skipped 4 sections down and start answering. So our conversations could actually solve that problem because no one fills out those things well. Everybody has a problem when they're having to actually understand how to navigate a form. When you expect the user to navigate something, it doesn't matter if it's like a PDF form or if it's navigating 7 pages in your ERP on your website to get to something. There's a problem. But conversations being back and forth and back and forth and having context, we should never present them with say questions they don't answer. So don't give them a giant form. Ask the first 2 questions, and based on the responses, only give them the next question to answer that's in the context of what they're talking about. So I think that those are things that we will, as like business analysts, think about and say these are problems. And we may not see as a problem because we see that form every day. We have to put ourselves in the context of the end user and think about how are they interacting with the form? How's the end user interacting with, say, a chatbot? So that whole, remembering and actually breaking things down, a conversation is literally back and forth and back and forth. We need to put that in the context of the user itself. How is the user interacting versus, how do we think they should interact with
Yeah, and then do that dynamically by context and not
it? Mm-hmm.
hard code all those rules, right? So I can imagine filling out a survey, and I've seen these. There are some smart forms that will skip questions based on your answers, right? But
Yeah.
if I'm filling out some type of HR form, and um, I state that I'm a male, then I probably am not going to get any kind of further female related questions or
Yeah.
something like that, right? Um, and but that would be like they would actually hard code that into the form, but to dynamically do that with context and to improve the whole customer experience. It's either an external customer or internal customer too, right? I think the use cases for an internal customer are greater.
I've actually got the perfect example of that. I mean, I've done my taxes online forever. And every year it has a step. Okay, you've done your federal taxes. Let's look at your local taxes. I'm like, I live in Texas. We don't have local taxes.
Yeah.
So why are you even presenting this question to me and checking it? It's like, that is so dumb. It's like, oh, by the way, you don't have no state level taxes in Texas. It's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, it should be smart enough to not even prompt me to then say, oh, by the way, I mean, that's bad customer service. It's like if a customer agent puts you on hold to ask the manager, let me see if I can get you a discount on your phone, Scott, because you're a good customer. If they come back, yes, it's a win. If they come back, oh, sorry, you suck. We're not going to give you this discount. That's really bad, right?
Yeah.
So this whole concept of asking the next question in the context, a simple example is a PDF form. A dumb, hard-coded rule is, well, don't ask people in Texas if they have local taxes. But a really good one is, could you actually have the chatbot do the calculation in the background? Should we give someone a discount, and only offer it if it's available, right? And that would be some business logic and business rules. It's like, but that means the conversational and the AI behind it needs to understand who you are, your good customer, reference data and systems, and actually keep things on an upbeat note. Because how mad would you have been if you walked in the store and they said, oh, by the way, we're not going to give you this discount on this phone because we decided some business rule we didn't know about exists, right?
Yeah, I can't think. I know that has happened to me somewhere. I can't think of an example, but just buying stuff online, like, why are you going to even offer that to me? It's not a fit for me.
Yep.
I have no history of this or whatever. Like, so my favorite is when you buy something and like all the websites still want to sell it to you. I'm like, I already bought this. Like somebody's wasting ad money, but that's a whole different topic. Well, good. Thanks, Chris. Any closing thoughts that you want to leave with people before we let them go?
So I think that we really need to think about chatbots, and don't think about over personifying them. Like, I agree with Forrester on that for sure, but figure out how can you actually increase customer satisfaction. So don't think about it as a chatbot of how do we deflect users and not interact with them on the call center. How do we actually interact and engage with them to get them the right answer? And that's going to be actually using standard things we do with chatbots of intent and entity identification, but then actually having the business workflows behind that to answer. And I think some of the answers will be like ChatGPT, where they've indexed and looked up FAQs and got us answers. On the other side, it could be actually looking up and performing actions in a business system and allowing you to pick up where you left off. So if you started a conversation and it says, I need some information, so you have to go look it up, and an hour later you come back, don't forget and start over. Remember the context of where we were and continue where you are in that interaction itself. I think those are going to be the game changers and how we really have good traction in business with this conversational AI.
Well, perfect. Thanks, Chris. And thanks, everybody. See you next time.